Everything changed the moment Ty found the truth. In one breath, the trust he had built over years cracked apart, quiet, sharp, and final. And now, a storm is coming to Heartland, not from the sky, but from a friendship that may not survive what happens next. Ty stood alone in the dim barn, the cold morning air crawling in through the open doors. The horses were quiet, shifting softly in their stalls, unaware of the weight pressing down on him. On the workbench in front of him lay the papers he had found, documents Caleb should have talked to him about. Decisions Caleb had made behind his back. Ty scanned the pages again, hoping he had read wrong, hoping it wasn't what it looked like. But it was. A deal signed without his input. A risky plan involving horses Ty had been rehabbing. A promise Caleb had no right to make. For a long moment, Ty didn't move. He felt the betrayal like a hit to the chest. Caleb wasn't just a coworker or a ranch hand. He was someone Ty had trusted like a brother. Someone he had defended more times than he could count. This was the kind of mistake that didn't just affect business. It could have cost a horse its life. It could have put the ranch in danger. It could have pulled Amy and the kids into the middle of a mess they never asked for. The barn felt colder the more he thought about it. He could almost hear Caleb's carefree voice, the way he always brushed things off with a grin. Ty had forgiven him before: late payments, lazy shortcuts, reckless ideas, but this time felt different. This wasn't a small slip-up. This was crossing a line Ty didn't even know Caleb was close to. He squeezed the papers in his fist, trying to steady his breathing. He wanted to believe Caleb had a reason. Maybe he thought he was helping. Maybe he panicked. Maybe he was desperate. But none of that erased the fact that Ty had to find out like this quietly, accidentally, and alone in a barn that suddenly felt too big and too empty. Outside, the wind pushed against the doors, making them creak. Ty looked up, jaw tight, eyes hardening with a decision he never thought he would have to make. He had spent years rebuilding his life, his family, his place at Heartland. He wasn't going to let anyone even Caleb risk that again. With a slow, heavy breath, Ty folded the papers under his arm and walked out of the barn. He knew what he had to do, and Caleb wouldn't like it, not one bit. Amy spotted Ty from across the yard before he even reached the porch. Something was wrong, she could feel it. Ty wasn't walking with his usual steady calm. His shoulders were stiff, his steps heavy, like each one carried a weight he couldn't set down. The morning sun caught the edge of the papers tucked under his arm, and Amy's heart tightened. Whatever he found, it wasn't good. She wiped her hands on her jeans and moved toward him, meeting him halfway. Ty didn't speak at first. He just handed her the papers. Amy took them slowly, scanning the lines, her eyes widening as she read. Caleb's signature. A deal neither of them approved. Horses involved in a risky training plan that went against everything Ty had been working on. Amy felt the same shock Ty had felt earlier. Sharp, sudden, and cold. Ty. Did Caleb really do this? She asked softly. Ty didn't look angry. That almost scared her more. His expression was calm, controlled, the kind of calm he only had when he was past frustration and deep into disappointment. He ran a hand through his hair, staring at the ground. I trusted him, Amy. After everything. And he went behind my back like it didn't matter. Amy stepped closer, trying to understand the tangled storm inside him. She knew how much Caleb meant to Ty. They had worked through fights before, argued, joked, shared wins and losses. But this time felt different. This wasn't about stubborn pride or harmless mistakes. This was about trust. The kind that took years to build and seconds to break. Amy reached out, touching Ty's arm gently. Maybe there's an explanation, she said. Even though she wasn't sure she believed it herself, Ty let out a short, tired breath. I don't know if I can listen to one right now. The wind brushed past them, carrying the sounds of the ranch, the horses calling, the gate creaking, the steady rhythm of a place that usually brought peace. But today, peace felt far away. Amy could see the hurt in Ty's eyes, the kind that didn't fade quickly. Whatever you decide, she said quietly, I'm with you, 100%. Ty finally met her gaze, and for a moment, the tightness in his chest eased. Amy always grounded him, even when everything else felt like it was slipping. He took the papers back and folded them carefully. "I need to talk to him," he said. "But not as a friend this time," Amy nodded. She didn't try to stop him. She knew Ty well enough to know he had reached a point he couldn't back away from, as Ty walked toward the barn again. Amy stayed still, watching him with worry twisting inside her. She could only hope Caleb understood what he had done, because the man Ty was walking toward wasn't just upset. He was done being pushed, lied to, or taken advantage of. And once Ty closed a door, it almost never opened again. Caleb was tightening a cinch on a training horse when he heard footsteps behind him. He didn't turn right away. He figured it was just someone passing through. But then he felt the shift in the air, that heavy silence that only came when something serious was about to happen. When he finally looked up, Ty was standing a few feet away, shoulders squared, eyes unreadable. "Got a minute?" Ty's voice was steady, too steady. Caleb froze for half a second. He could tell immediately something was off. Ty didn't sound annoyed. He didn't sound tired. He sounded settled, like he had already made up his mind before speaking. "Yeah, sure," Caleb said, trying to keep his voice light. "What's up?" Ty didn't answer. Instead, he handed Caleb the papers. The same papers that had shattered the morning. Caleb's face went pale as he unfolded them. He didn't need to read them. He knew exactly what they were. He knew what signature sat at the bottom. And he knew instantly that Ty had found out everything. Ty. "Look, I was going to tell you," Caleb started, panic already rising beneath his words. "But you didn't." Ty cut in, calm but sharp. "You knew what this deal meant. You knew it involved horses I was working with. You knew it dragged Heartland into something risky, and you did it anyway." Caleb opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Words felt useless when the truth was laid out so plainly between them. "I thought I could handle it," he finally managed. "I thought it would work out before you even had to worry about it." Ty let out a bitter breath, almost a laugh, but without any humor. "That's the problem, Caleb. You always think you can fix things later. You never think about the people who get dragged into the mess before later even arrives." Caleb took a slow step forward. "I didn't mean to go behind your back. I swear." "It doesn't matter what you meant," Ty said quietly. "It matters what you did." For a moment, neither man spoke. The barn felt too small for the weight between them. The horses shifted nervously, picking up on the tension the way they always did. Caleb wiped a hand over his face. "Just give me a chance to explain." Ty shook his head. "I'm done giving chances. This isn't the first time you've pulled something like this, Caleb, but it's the last time I'm going to deal with it." Caleb's chest tightened. "Ty, come on, man. We've been through worse than this." "Not like this," Ty said, voice low, but final. "You crossed a line, and I'm not going to let you cross it again." Caleb felt the words hit like a punch. Ty wasn't angry. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't even frustrated. He was finished, and that was worse than anything else. Ty took the papers back and folded them neatly. "From today on, we're done working together. No training deals. No horse partnerships. No shared projects. Nothing." Caleb swallowed hard, looking at Ty as if trying to recognize him. "You're cutting me out?" Ty met his eyes steadily. "I'm cutting ties. For good." The words echoed through the barn, final and cold. Ty turned and walked out, leaving Caleb standing there with nothing but regret and the sharp sting of a friendship, breaking clean in half. The silence in the barn felt heavier after Ty walked out, so heavy Caleb almost couldn't breathe. The horse beside him nudged his shoulder, sensing the tension, but Caleb barely reacted. His hands hung uselessly at his sides, the leather reins dragging softly across the dirt. Ty's words kept replaying in his head, clearer than anything else around him. "I'm cutting ties." For good? Caleb sank onto a hay bale, elbows on his knees, head hanging low. He had messed up before more times than he wanted to admit. But this time felt different. This wasn't Ty being annoyed or disappointed or frustrated. This was Ty shutting a door. And Caleb knew Ty well enough to know that once that door closed, it rarely, if ever, opened again. He looked down at his hands. They used to be steady, strong, sure of what they were doing, but right now, they shook, just a little. He tried to push back the rising panic, but it crawled up anyway. Ty had been more than a friend. He had been a lifeline on some of Caleb's darkest days, partner when everything else was falling apart. And now, because of one reckless decision, Caleb had thrown all of that away. He leaned back against the stall post, staring up at the dusty ceiling beams. "Why'd you do it?" he muttered to himself. He already knew the answer, but saying it out loud made it real. He wanted the shortcut. He wanted the win. He wanted to be the guy who finally proved he could handle things on his own. But instead of proving anything, he'd shown exactly why Ty never trusted him with big responsibilities. A saddle creaked nearby as a horse shifted in its stall. The soft sound usually comforted him, but today it only reminded him of everything he'd risked. Ty's rehabbing, horses beautiful. Sensitive animals that depended on careful training were now mixed up in a deal Caleb should have never touched. Caleb's chest tightened again. "Idiot," he whispered. "You absolute idiot." For a moment, he thought about going after Ty, shouting for him to wait, begging for a second chance. But he didn't move. He knew Ty wouldn't hear him nod in the way Caleb needed. Ty wasn't acting out of anger. He was acting out of a place Caleb had pushed him into one mistake at a time. Caleb rubbed his face with both hands, feeling the sting behind his eyes build. Not anger, not fear. Just regret. Deep, sharp regret that settled heavy in his stomach. He stood up slowly and walked to the stall door, resting his forehead against the wood. "I'll fix this," he whispered to himself, though the words felt weak. "I have to." But even as he said it, a part of him knew fixing a broken fence was one thing. Fixing a broken friendship, one as old as the Heartland dirt, that was something else entirely. Outside, the wind picked up, lifting dust across the yard, brushing the edge of the barn like a warning. Caleb closed his eyes, letting the sound swallow him. He knew Ty was gone from the barn, maybe gone from their partnership forever. And for the first time in a long time, Caleb felt truly alone. Jack found Ty standing by the old fence line, staring out toward the hills like he was trying to steady himself against the wind. The ranch was quiet except for the soft hum of the breeze and the distant nickers from the herd. Jack didn't call out or clear his throat. He simply walked up beside Ty and rested his hands on the top rail, giving him space the way only Jack knew how. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Ty's jaw was tight, the papers now crumpled at his side. Jack had seen that look before years ago, when Ty was still trying to figure out who he was and where he belonged. But the man standing here now wasn't lost or confused. He was hurt in a way that settled deep. "Caleb told me you talked," Jack finally said, his voice low, steady. Ty didn't look at him. "If you can call it talking?" Jack nodded slowly, as if that answer made sense. "I've known Caleb a long time. Boy's heart is bigger than his brain some days." Ty almost laughed, but the sound died before it reached his throat. "He didn't just mess up, Jack. He went behind my back. He made a deal with horses that weren't his. Horses I've been working with for months. He put everything at risk." Jack looked out across the fields, letting the silence settle before speaking again. "I'm not excusing what he did. I'd be angry too. Probably more than angry." Ty finally turned to Jack, frustration boiling beneath his calm voice. "I trusted him. After everything, and he still pulled something like this. I can't keep cleaning up after him. I won't." Jack studied him, eyes narrowed just slightly. "You think cutting him out is the answer?" Ty's stare hardened. "I think it's the only way things stop falling apart." Jack took in a slow breath. His voice softened, but his words didn't lose their weight. "You're a good man, Ty. Always have been. You protect the people you love, and you don't back down from doing what's right. But when you build a fence that high between you and someone you care about, sometimes you end up trapping yourself in too." I dropped his gaze, gripping the rail until his knuckles whitened. "He crossed a line, Jack. I can't pretend he didn't. And I'm not asking you to," Jack replied. But don't make decisions from a place where hurt speaks louder than reason. Let the words settle. He knew Jack wasn't picking sides. Jack never did. He just had a way of slipping wisdom into the cracks left by anger. Caleb needs to learn, Ty said softly. And maybe this is the only way he finally does. Jack exhaled through his nose, thoughtful. Maybe he needs someone to tell him he messed up without walking away completely. Ty shook his head. If I let this slide, he'll think he can get away with it again. He'll never change. Jack didn't argue. He just rested a hand on the rail, tapping it lightly. Just remember this, Ty. Broken friendships don't repair themselves. And once you burn a bridge, well, that smoke takes a long time to clear. Ty said nothing. He didn't need to. The decision still felt painful, but right. And yet Jack's words lingered like a shadow stretching across the pasture. The wind picked up again, brushing Ty's face, bending the tall grass in waves. Beside him, Jack stayed silent, not pushing, not judging, just being there the way family does. But even with Jack's presence grounding him, Ty felt the truth pressing on his chest, no matter how strong a man was. Some choices left marks that didn't fade. Amy found Caleb behind the arena, sitting on an overturned bucket like a man who had run out of places to stand. His elbows rested on his knees, head bowed, hat dangling from his fingers. Anyone else might have walked past him without noticing the storm inside him. But Amy saw it instantly, the way his shoulders slumped, the way he couldn't even look up. He looked small in a way she had never seen before. She approached quietly, boots crunching softly on the gravel. Caleb didn't lift his head until she was only a few steps away. When he finally looked at her, his eyes were red around the edges, and his voice came out rough. "You here to tell me how stupid I am?" he asked with a broken laugh. Amy shook her head gently. "No, I'm here to understand what happened." Caleb breathed out hard, almost a sigh, almost a confession. It got out of hand. "I thought I had it under control. I thought if I could just get the deal rolling, Ty would see it was a good idea. And maybe he'd finally believe I'm not the screw-up everyone thinks." Amy took a seat on the fence rail, facing him. "Caleb, no one thinks you're a screw-up. But this put horses at risk. It put the ranch in trouble. And it blindsided Ty." "I know." Caleb wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. "Believe me, I know. I've been replaying it in my head for hours. I messed up. Worse than usual." Amy watched him carefully. She remembered years of history, wins, losses, childish arguments, long nights fixing mistakes. Caleb wasn't a bad person. He was a flawed one. And sometimes flaws were louder than good intentions. "He cares about you, Caleb," she said softly. "Maybe that's why this hurts him so much." Caleb's eyes closed for a moment. "Feels like he hates me." Amy shook her head firmly. "Ty doesn't hate you. He's hurt. And when Ty gets hurt, he pulls away to protect the people he loves." Caleb stared down at the dirt. He said, "We're done. All ties cut. Do you know what that feels like to hear from someone who's been like a brother?" Amy swallowed. She did know. Ty didn't say those words easily. But when he did, they were final. Heavy meant. "It feels like the ground drops out under you," Caleb continued, voice cracking. "And you don't even have the right to ask him to forgive you because you're the one who burned the bridge." Amy wanted to comfort him, but she wouldn't lie. She wouldn't pretend this problem was small or simple. "You hurt him, and you have to take responsibility for that." "I am," Caleb whispered. "But I don't know if it matters anymore." Amy leaned forward slightly. "It does, even if it doesn't fix things today." Caleb looked up, eyes shining with unshed tears. "Do you think he'll ever talk to me again?" Amy took a breath. "I don't know. Ty is trying to protect his family, his peace, and right now he thinks distance is the only way to do that." Caleb nodded slowly, a single tear slipping down before he could stop it. He wiped it away quickly, embarrassed. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "I know," Amy said gently. "But sometimes not meaning to isn't enough." Caleb's voice dropped to barely more than a whisper. "I just want a chance to make it right." Amy stood, placing a hand on his shoulder, a gesture full of understanding but not absolution. Then start by owning what you did. All of it. And give Ty the space he needs. Caleb nodded again, but the uncertainty in his eyes remained as Amy walked away. She felt the weight of both men's pain settling on her heart. She loved them both in different ways. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't sure if Heartland had enough room to hold a friendship this broken. The sun was sinking behind the hills when Ty finally returned to the barn. The soft orange light stretched long shadows across the yard, painting everything in a calm that didn't reach him. He walked slowly, almost deliberately, like a man preparing himself for something heavy. The barn doors stood half open, the warm glow inside spilling out onto the dirt. Ty paused before stepping in. This place had always grounded him, the scent of hay, the quiet breaths of horses, the familiar rhythm of work, but tonight it felt different. Hollow, echoing with things he wished he didn't have to confront. He moved down the aisle, touching each stall door gently as he passed, grounding himself in small motions, steady breaths. He reached Harley's stall and stopped. The horse lifted his head, ears forward, sensing something in the air. Ty rested a hand on Harley's neck, letting the warmth steady him. Harley had carried him through storms before real ones and emotional ones. Tonight was both. "I can't keep letting things fall apart around me," Ty murmured. More to himself than the horse, he leaned his forehead against the stall door, finally letting the weight of the day crush down on him. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't even disappointed. He was tired of always being the one to fix things, tired of watching people he cared about make choices that dragged everyone down, tired of pretending that loyalty had no limits. And Caleb had pushed those limits too far. Ty straightened slowly, taking a deep breath as he stepped back from the stall. He reached into his back pocket and unfolded the papers again. The signature glared up at him. No matter how many times he looked at it, it hurt the same way. Footsteps approached from behind. Soft, careful, Amy. "You okay?" she asked quietly. Ty shook his head. "Not really, but I know what I need to do." Amy walked closer, her expression gentle, knowing she had seen him reach this place before. It was the place where Ty stopped thinking with his anger and started thinking with his heart. "Even if the answer wasn't easy, I'm done trying to save something Caleb doesn't protect himself," Ty said, voice calm but firm. "I'm cutting business ties, training ties, all of it. Not because I want to hurt him, but because I can't let him keep hurting everything we've built." Amy nodded, sadness softening her eyes. Sometimes letting go is the only way forward. Ty let out a long breath. "I hope he figures himself out someday. I really do. But I can't be the one fixing him anymore." Just then, a faint sound drifted in from outside hoofbeats, followed by someone calling for a horse that wasn't there. Ty turned instinctively, and in the distance through the open doors, he spotted Caleb's truck pulling away from the ranch. Fast. Faster than normal. Headlights cutting through the dark, Amy's brow creased. "Where is he going?" Ty didn't answer. He watched the truck disappear down the road, a knot forming in his chest. Something about the speed, the urgency, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like someone walking away. It felt like someone running toward something dangerous or running from the truth. Amy placed a hand on his arm. Ty didn't take his eyes off the road. "This isn't over," he said quietly. The barn lights flickered in the wind, shadows stretching long and thin, and just like that, the real storm began to rise.